Welcome to the Resource of the Future podcast series, a podcast series by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce that explores the present and the future of Canada's resource sector. Our focus spans the impact of the Fourth Industrial Revolution on the agricultural sector, the evolving relationships of Indigenous communities to the resource sector, to technologies and new business practices that will be vital to our leadership towards a low-carbon economy. Our purpose is to foster a better understanding of how our resource sector binds Canadian communities together, the challenges we face, and the opportunities before us as a nation of builders. In this podcast, we hear from Chief Darlene Hunter of the Halfway River First Nation in Northeast BC, and Brad Bonner, the President and CEO of the Halfway River Group. They are joined by Alison DeBeck from ConocoPhillips Canada. Alison works in ConocoPhillips Canada's Government and External Relations team and focuses on engagement with Indigenous communities. Halfway River First Nation community is approximately 100 kilometers northwest of Fort St. John, BC, and has approximately 400 members. It also happens to be the closest Indigenous community to ConocoPhillips Montney Play in northeast BC. Montney Play is an asset that is liquids rich and is in the late appraisal stage. Throughout 2019, activities have included drilling in the area, building phase 1 of a new gas plant, a water hub, and much more. The Halfway River Group of companies, led by Brad Bonner, is the economic arm of the Halfway River Nation, and it is the vehicle through which the community participates in industrial projects, offers the community financial benefits, as well as training and employment opportunities. In addition to the Halfway Group of companies, the community also benefits through formal agreements with ConocoPhillips. In this episode, we dive into the Halfway River Nation's vision for its future, the leadership of the community in preserving its traditions and balancing these traditions with new economic opportunities, and how honest, open, and ongoing conversations have allowed the relationship between ConocoPhillips and the Halfway River community to continue to evolve. One of the first questions that Chief Hunter was asked, well, what was her vision, or her people's vision, for the Halfway River First Nation community?
My personal vision for the communities is to see them be self-sufficient, is to make sure that we take care of the 7 generations and that we are able to grow that, where by working with industry and working with government and whoever, that we are able to make sure that when I'm gone, that my grandkids can continue on. We need to preserve our treaty. And we have to be able to, and I don't know, the youth, we have youth in our community, still hunt, still trap, they still live their way of life that they've learned from the elders. And like just this morning, I looked on my Facebook and one of our our youth is out there. He's got his own whole camp set up. He still wants to live that life. And I don't feel it's my place to take that away from them. And if I agree with everything that was supposed to happen, or people want to see happen in our territory, then I'm taking that away from them. And that's not right. I don't agree with that. So in my opinion, I think reclamation has to start happening. It has to start happening, and it has to start happening soon. And I appreciate that Conoco is the only company that's ever said, okay, as soon as we closed in something, 2 years later, we're going to reclaim it.
And for me, being there and being a non-Indigenous person and not being as connected to the land, it was like, holy smokes, there is a real impact here. Okay. And so with this impact, these people really are here hunting. I'm seeing this firsthand for myself. So as I learned that, I'm like, okay, we need to be participating, right? There has to be an avenue for us to be able to participate. So these projects will generate revenues for corporations for 40, 50 years, and it needs to do the same thing for the nations, because they will be suffering with those impacts for 40, 50 years. I didn't believe that 5 years ago, but being there, I see it. It's true.
The necessary follow-up question was, what role does business development, and the energy industry in particular, play in realizing that vision?
I feel that it helps the community be able to prosper, and we can, like, through, like, things like our gravel pit. It was run and operated by someone else on our behalf, so we didn't make 100%. But through industry helping HR Group and Ventures, we own it 100% now, and we own equipment that is 100% owned, which Ventures is 100% owned by the community. And through working with industry and industry putting our group of companies to work, then group makes money. That group's able to go through Ventures to get more for us and to help our community. This year we're getting a gas station store. We're getting an elders park, thanks to Conoco and EPFC. And we're going to get an elders home with the help of Conoco and other industry partners. And we're going to get a playground that was paid for by industry and others. Group of companies help us get that all put together. And we've been able to do a lot of different projects and things that the community feels we need.
The group of companies participating in the energy sector is vital to the nation establishing their independence and being self-sufficient. And it's working. It's a slow process. We need to provide a service. Our expectation is not that you would use all the services, but that you would pick from that fleet of services. And where we don't have the capacity or we lack the capacity, that you assist us to build that capacity.
We asked how important it is for ConocoPhillips and the Halfway River First Nations community that engagement on projects is early and continuous.
It's critical. Again, without that, and I think it starts even before we actually have a project, and more about even starting to foster the relationship, and that comes not only when we have an ask, but more importantly, spending time in the community, experiencing the community, learning firsthand some of the priorities and challenges.
By industry coming in and being a part of our community, by being a part of our culture camps, a part of our Christmas and the Stay in School program and all of those programs, that they're not going to get to know who we really are as a people unless you become a part of the community. It's a lot of work to support the people in the community and be there. And we've had Allison there quite a bit, and helping and learning and getting to know the kids, being a part of the community and getting to know the elders, and just to get to know the people. And you really start to understand how we live. That's the optimum word, respect for each other. We have to have respect for Conoco, and we hope that they have respect for us, because our lifestyle, we get it. You don't understand our lifestyle, but we invite you in if you want to be a part of it. You're more than welcome.
What I could add to that from an economic point of view is when you engage early and we know what those needs are going to be, we're able to identify opportunities where we can build some core competencies that provide certainty. And with certainty, and we know there's a market, then we can educate ourselves and build the skills we need to satisfy that market.
We also wanted to know, how does knowing about a community's values and priorities affect ConocoPhillips' approach to advancing a project, like the project in Montney?
An understanding of the community's priorities and values is critical to our approach. Without that understanding, we really don't have a roadmap for how our relationship will unfold. And it's through that understanding that we're able to incorporate the values and priorities of the community into our development planning, and notice where there's synergies in overlapping of our interests. So again, it's critical. It's a big component of what we do and how we approach relationships with communities.
We asked if they had a particular example of maybe where they had learned along the way and then adjusted their plans, or maybe just found where new synergies lay amongst themselves.
But I think our water strategy is a good example. So even though trying to find a sustainable water solution was aligned with Halfway's values, our water source and our water and related water infrastructure did pose some concerns for Halfway.
Mm-hmm.
So over the course of a year, we had several meetings to really discuss and do a deep dive into what those potential concerns were and how we could address and mitigate those.
And it has to be open and trustful, because sometimes things hurt and you still have to talk about them. I mean, we had to work through a lot of things. When Conoco was putting in their water line, it got pushed back because there was things we had to work through. There was places that we didn't want to destroy. We wanted them to stay the same because there's a mineral lick there, there's beaver there, we have to protect the animals too, or we don't have a wildlife.
We came up with some creative solutions, but it was only because we had Halfway working with us collaboratively that we were able to come up with solutions that really met both of our needs and also the community's needs. Also in those conversations, we got a better understanding of the community's own challenges with water, and we're able to identify different ways that we might be able to partner with the community to help them address their own water supply issues. And so, again, coming back to the values and interests of the community, trying to balance the traditional practices with that economic participation is no small feat for anyone, right? But it's only achieved through that actual, honest, concrete, frequent conversations that we have.
Throughout the interview, it became very clear that this has been a long-standing relationship, and a relationship that has developed over time. We wanted to know if there's anything in particular that each of them were proud of or stood out for them as an accomplishment in their partnership together.
My perspective, just not only the strong leadership team that Halfway has, and even though there's diverse perspectives on that leadership team, the continued commitment to the community vision and principles. So that's one thing that stands out. Another thing is just the willingness to collaborate, and we are all learning as we go through these interactions, and it's only because of a willingness to work together that we can find that path forward. So I think that willingness and that acceptance from Halfway to really participate in that is something that stands out for me.
Yeah, and I take great pride in the fact that Halfway is a very soft, passionate people. They're not looking for a fight. They just want, I don't know how you say that, but they want to work with people. They want to work with industry. Like, we're not saying that what's going on in our territory is all bad, but just work with us. And
with respects to the community, what I capture from the community and what I've heard other people share with me and experience myself is optimism. So there's a real sense of optimism for the community. There's a real sense of spirit beginning to develop. And most commonly, what I've taken away from it is a sense of pride. And I see that sense of pride when people see our project signs up on a work site. So we'll have a work site, we'll put up a project sign that says this project delivered by Halfway River Ventures. And that's what gets people talking. One thing that I'm pretty proud of, I would say, that it would be that the aggregate pit is up and running and operating, but also the knowledge that's been shared through operating the gravel pit, right from invoicing to billing to federal legislation around mining, to the training that people have gotten to operate the pit, to be getting their pit boss tickets, to getting operating the scales, to advancing the way that we scale products, to the cost controls that we've put in around trying to reduce the cost of producing aggregates. We know every ton where it's gone. We've got the data. We've calculated. We've done a lot of work it's efficient and it's well run by any standards, and it's run by a community member. I'm pretty proud of that.
I just want to say one thing that also stands out with interacting with Halfway on the contracting side is that, like, genuine interest in wanting to provide a good service and add value. And so that's really helpful in us having the conversations. Again, not always easy, Sometimes there's a need to work through so that we understand each other and, again, some of the constraints. But it's through that commitment that we've, hopefully both benefited in terms of us getting a good service and us supporting that development and that economic benefit to the community as well.
In closing, we'd heard about the opportunities and the successes that have been shared by all sides as this relationship continued to develop. What we were curious about, though, is that there's any sort of components of the relationship that they were still working on that they wanted to talk about, or where they'd like to see future growth and development.
I think like any relationship, there's ongoing maintenance to that relationship. So there's an ongoing need to touch base and to see how maybe interests have evolved or needs have evolved or constraints have evolved. A relationship isn't static, right? And so I think both Chief and Brad have spoken to the effort that is required to maintain a relationship. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just part of having a relationship is to continue that effort and investment in the well-being of both parties, right?
It's the same thing as being married. If you're married, if you don't work on it, it goes away. There's always going to be something to work on. If you're not working on something, then you don't have a relationship. There's always going to be something that has to be talked about, that has to be worked through. In order for a relationship to keep going, you always have to be working on it. Always.
I want to thank everybody for tuning into the conversation today. And I hope you want to continue to stay engaged with us as we continue to explore the critical role Canada's resource sector plays in supporting Indigenous communities and business development, creating new technologies that are going to guide our path forward to a lower carbon economy, as well as developing practices of sustainability and innovation. And finally, just understanding the interconnected relationship and interdependencies that make the resource sector in Canada a key driver in social and economic development in small communities and large communities across Canada. And please don't forget to check out our website for updates and new podcast episodes at rotf.ca. If you want to continue to add support to this conversation, please feel free to share this episode on social media and maybe consider using some of these hashtags. Hashtag ROTF, hashtag Resource Champions, hashtag Canada's Natural Advantage. But we also look forward to seeing whatever you come up with as well. Thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to having you in the conversation in the future.